today's lecture is going to be about the MVP, or the minimum viable product. So these are the poll results. Alright, some announcements. Project 2 is due today, 11:59 p.m. And remember that every member must fill out the submission form. Also, pitch day is next Tuesday. So it's mandatory for all students to submit a pitch to this link, even if you aren't planning to pitching to the entire class. So make sure you get that in next week, Tuesday, before 7 p.m., so before class starts. So next week is going to be pitch day, as I mentioned, where you guys will be talking about your pitches that you want to make a game for Project 3. So some guidelines for your pitches, you don't have to follow this, but if you want to use this as a guide for how to give your pitch, mention your name. If you have a temporary name for the game, also mention that. Talk about the main gameplay mechanic, just the core gameplay loop, the theme or genre, art style, if you need any music, and any miscellaneous things you want to bring up. You're also welcome to use external documents, such as slides in your pitch, like screen share them, but remember that your presentations or your pitches are going to be hard capped at 5 minutes. So also remember to leave a little bit of time for questions, just in case anyone has them. Alright, so moving on to the lecture for MVP. So I'm going to go over what the high level of what an MVP means. MVP refers to the phrase minimum viable product. I know in sports it means most valuable player, but in this context, it's basically the bare minimum amount of game necessary for you to still have a game. Your MVP should really only have your core game mechanic and not much else. When creating your game in the early stages, really ask yourself what the core of the game is, and build around that vision. The goal is to really capture the essence of what your game is going to be about. In the vast majority of cases, you can boil a game down to a 30-second window of fun, and that's the core of the game. On the right here, you can see a clip of Celeste. Obviously, this is from the final game, so take the polish and the visuals with a grain of salt, but you can see that this 10-second loop pretty much encapsulates the majority of the game. So what's the point of the MVP? The MVP is there to help you really focus in when designing your game. When building a game idea, you must have a solid foundation. Building off of a foundation that's kind of hazy and not well fleshed out is the quickest way to mess up on your project. So how do you go about finding your 30 seconds of fun? The first thing you want to do is define what your core game loop is. And just a reminder, the core gameplay loop is the most important defining part of your game that comes up over and over again. Next, go ahead and throw away anything that doesn't relate to your core game loop. And then lastly, throw away some more things, because I'm willing to wager that you probably still kept too many things. It's hard to trim the extra fat out of your game idea, but this is key to building a solid game foundation. So on the bottom here, this is Slay the Spire. And as you can see in the clip, the game has a lot going on. The top bar has potions, relics, and there's a bunch of buttons and UI everywhere. However, the core game loop of Slay the Spire is playing cards, killing enemies, and adding new cards to your deck, and repeat. So if you were building the MVP for this game, don't worry about, all these potions, relics, extra features, this UI. Just focus on being able to play the cards and defeat enemies. That's the core gameplay loop of this game. So let's step away from video games for a second and discuss the more traditional game. What would be the minimum amount of work you would need to have chess be a workable, functioning game? I'd argue that there are only two mechanics needed: moving and capturing. You can remove unit diversity, remove the different movesets of the pieces, and so on. The basics of chess is that you're moving friendly pieces to go capture enemy pieces. So it's easy to get carried away when building a game. You might get excited and then want to build from the ground up, system by system, until you fulfill your amazing vision. This is absolutely the wrong way to build an MVP. Layer by layer building makes it so you will never have a really cohesive and clean product until it's completely done. On the other hand, on your right side, you can see we have the thin slice, which touches on every part of the pyramid. As a game, it might not be the most exciting to play, but at least it's built. It's a scaled-down version of the original vision that you had in mind, and you can slowly sweep across the pyramid, expanding on what's existing, instead of floundering around on things you won't see tangibly. So as an example, for a platformer, don't go spending the entire first month building an in-depth movement system or wall climbing, thinking, oh, we'll just get the systems in place first and then create the levels. So I can't stress this enough, you want your game to be playable. You don't want to add pieces one after the other that won't ever end in a finished product until it's literally done. Not only will this help you be sane, but it'll also be good for playtesting as well. You can't get playtest feedback if your game literally doesn't work. I think this picture really summarizes it well. You don't want to be assembling the car piece by piece. You want to be evolving from the skateboard to the car over time. Alright, some more examples. For Skyrim, the MVP of this game would just be the ability to move, attack, and loot, because that makes up the majority of the gameplay. And for Persona 5, I'd say the MVP for this game would just be the RPG turn-based battle system, and maybe being able to move around and interact with others in the overworld. So you don't need the in-depth dating or confidant system in your MVP. And lastly, I can't stress this enough, have a clear and solid MVP as your foundation. Building on shaky foundations never works well. This is especially important because inevitably, most of you guys will have to scale back your game, and if you're building like a car, like in the previous slides here, scaling back could be deadly to your game. You can always expand your game once you have your MVP. Building in this way leaves you to be open-minded to new ideas, as well as keeping you flexible and resilient in case any problems crop up. And remember to always have a working prototype somewhere. Version control software such as Git or Colab is great for this. You don't want to be making changes the day of a playtest and then, boom, everything's gone. And yeah, that's the end of the MVP lecture. Alright, so going into a little bit more about what the final project is going to be about. So, yep, Project 3 is finally here. This project is worth 70% of your grade, so it's, pretty important. So for Project 3, you guys will be making games based on the pitches given next Tuesday in groups of 3 to 5, and there will be 2-ish week milestones. The first milestone will be the game design document, and then every 2 weeks after that, we'll just have traditional playtest showcases. And you guys will be creating playtest questions for each other and also playtesting each other's games to give feedback. We'll have mentors assigned to each group who will check in every week with you guys. And a rough schedule from now on, Tuesdays will be a short lecture and a check-in, or there will be guest lectures, and then Thursday will either be playtests or a short lecture and a work session. The final project is a good opportunity to make something that you and your team can be proud of. Or if you're just here for the units, you can show it off on your resume. You gotta learn how to work as a team, learning skills in various areas, and being exposed to some roles you didn't know. And also using all the skills you've learned from labs, class, lectures up till now, and using them to create a cool game. You don't really need to worry about this right now, but just so all of you guys are aware, for the project, final project submission, you have to upload your game to itch.io with a 1 to 2 minute video trailer, submit all your project files onto Git, and send them to us, fill out a final evaluation form, and lastly, present your game. Alright, and here's the reading due next Tuesday, and this is the attendance.